This frame reminds us of the places that were significant for us as Catalina crews. We often came back to Lake Boga for the maintenance of a particular part of the plane or getting new planes. So Lake Boga was always in our thinking as far as goods supply was concerned. So we have the map here which tells us there's Lake Boga right down there in Victoria, part of the Murray River complex, and it was here that the planes from America would come, and the American crews were always eager to have armour plating between them and the enemy that was firing, and we would have all of that heavy armour plating taken out. If the wheels were on amphibians, we would take them off. There was a particular skin that was put into the petrol tanks. That was taken out, the self-sealing tanks, so that Lake Boga was very important because all the new planes would always come here, and if we had other things that we needed specialist treatment, we would come down to Lake Boga.
Some catalinas were amphibian, meaning they could land on an airstrip or land on water. Now, to land on an airstrip, they've got to be able to put wheels down, of course, and this is the mechanism it comes out, and from the side of the fuselage down here, this is the big shock absorber, main wheel strut, and the big main wheels would be up about that high, and they'd let the wheels down, and then you had a nose wheel, and the Catalina could land on an airstrip. And when it took off, it all folded up and was tucked away on the side of the aircraft. But the ones that weren't amphibian, to get them out of the water, you had to fit beaching gear wheels to the side, and then they put a tractor onto them and pulled them up the ramp. When the lake went dry, this was found in the bottom of the lake. Catalinas at the outbreak of World War II were just about obsolete. And then when the Japanese had a big hit on Pearl Harbor and brought the Americans into the war big time, the Catalina came back into its own. Air-sea rescue, reconnaissance, and they were then hanging torpedoes under the wing, mines, bombs, and the old Cat was responsible for sending a lot of Japanese ships to the bottom. They were an American aircraft, of course. The Australians flew them, the RAAF. The Royal New Zealand Air Force flew them, and the Dutch flew them. And this particular aircraft, the fuselage, is out of a Dutch aircraft because all the writing and printing inside it's all in Dutch. Well, we found one of the members of the Lake Boga Lions Club worked for the Swan Hill Shire, and he was the dog ranger. And he was out north of Swan Hill checking the farms and to see that the dogs that they had were all registered. And he came across this Catalina laying at the back of a shed. And he came back to the Lions Club and said what he'd found. And the kind-hearted gentleman on the farm donated the Catalina to us, but we had to go and get it. And I carted it here on my truck and trailer with great big working bees we had. And we were about 10 years restoring this aircraft back to the way it is now. I did about 80% of the restoration on my own. We had another gentleman in the club who's not with us anymore, he's deceased, Eddie Scown. Ed had a forklift mounted on his little tractor, and he did all the lifting for us, and he also had a semi-trailer that anything too long, we carted it on Eddie's semi, and he played a big part. This Catalina is exactly the same Catalina that was outside. And when they built this shed over it, they poured the concrete floor without moving the aircraft and built the shed without doing anything to it. We got it painted, and there's all new perspex in the windows, and it's here now for forevermore. We just put it back together. I've got a Catalina workshop manual at home, and we went by that, and just the way and I knew what a Catalina looked like, and Oh yes, I loved it. And the people that would come up to you while you were working out in the open, they'd come up to you and say, "Oh yeah, I was an air gunner," and all that sort of thing. You'd have to put down your tools and listen to them, the stories that they told. They were very, very interesting, and very interesting times. I was born in 1932, so I was around 10, 11 and 12 when World War II was on. When you get aeroplanes, flying boats landing on the lake, for little boys, it was a great attraction to see these aeroplanes come in and take off again. And then I had the privilege for my 12th birthday to have a flight in a Catalina, which didn't turn out to be a very good birthday present because they didn't have sick bags in the aircraft. I'll leave the rest to your imagination. After we've finished with this planet, the children that are coming along, most of them, if you said what a Catalina, a flying boat, they seem to think you have a ship with wings on it. But they don't know. But when you see the film and after this interview you got with me, they'll understand that it was an aircraft and the greatest significance that it played during World War II. Well, in conclusion, I'd like to thank the federal government, state government and the Swan Hill City Council for the work that they put into it, and because this aeroplane just didn't happen. And I want to personally thank all those involved and also all those that came and gave a hand, donated their time, their machinery, and the parts that were given to us, bits and pieces from all over southern Australia.